Hello and welcome to Economics and You. I am your host, Mr. Samuelson. Today we are going to be looking at organized labor. Let's take a look. Development of labor unions is an important part of American and really industrial world history. In the United States, this really got going in the 1800s, and it happened because working conditions were really bad. People were working really long days, 12, 14-hour days, six and a half, 7 days a week for very little pay. Workspaces were poorly lit. It was sometimes very dangerous. It was not fun to be an industrial worker in the United States in the 1800s. It included some pretty atrocious practices like child labor. Children as young as 4 were working in a number of factories. And dangerous conditions such as we had the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. This was a factory where they crowded a whole bunch of mostly girls and young women into this factory, and they locked the doors to make sure that they stayed in and did their work. But oops, the building caught fire and nobody could get out. And 150 people died because they didn't have good fire safety. They had crammed too many people into the building. They did not make sure that people could get out in the event of an emergency, and 150 people died. This was happening in the United States in the 1800s and early 1900s because of poor working conditions and no real concern for workers' rights. So workers took it on their own to start unions. And they started to hold strikes to secure better treatment and better pay. A strike is where the workers refuse to do their work. A union is simply a collection of workers who organize together in order to have a stronger voice. The American labor movement really got going because of the actions of some of these early unions. And over time, the movement had kind of divided into 2 different types of unions. The first ones to come around were craft unions. Craft unions included skilled workers. Okay, these were not your unskilled laborers. These are skilled workers who were very good at doing a specific thing. And they created what are called trade unions. So you might have the boot and shoe workers union. These are people who made boots and made shoes and were very good at it and had taken their time to really perfect this skill. You had to be an apprentice, a journeyman, and were eventually recognized as a master in this skill. And if you weren't a master, then you weren't allowed to sell. Industrial unions were a little bit different. They included all workers in a particular industry. Didn't matter what your job was or what your skill was. If you worked in this industry, you could be a member of the union. The railroad was one of the first places where you got to see a lot of this type of action, but it pretty quickly expanded to other areas as well. The AFLCIO is one labor union now that used to be 2. The American Federation of Labor, the AFL, was a collection of craft unions. A bunch of craft unions got together and realized that we all have more power if we work together. They will eventually merge in 1955 with the Congress of Industrial Organizations. This was a large industrial union that included a lot of unskilled labor. Once these 2 got together, instead of like arguing with each other over who got to claim membership of a particular group of people. Once they stopped having those arguments and they got together and they worked together, they became the largest labor union in the United States and had a tremendous amount of power in influencing what was going on in the United States. All right, so division of unions. Unions exist on both a local and national level. There are many unions that are only locally operated, but there are also unions that are locally operated but part of national branches. This would be an example of a national union with local branches. We've got the Local 33 in Iowa. This is a plumbers and steam fitters union. So all the plumbers and steam fitters get together. They're in this union. They work together for common interests, and this is their local organization. But then there's also a national branch of it. Sometimes they are limited to a single factory, hospital, school district, or local trade. And sometimes, again, they're part of a larger organization. Sometimes workers are required to join unions. But right-to-work laws have really limited this practice. A lot of states now have right-to-work, which basically says you cannot force anybody in your industry to be a member of the union. Now, on the surface, this sounds good, right? Like somebody wants to be a teacher, but there's a due. They have to pay, $100 a month toward the teachers' union to pay union officials to get union work done. Well, what if I don't want to pay that $100 per month? Well, in right-to-work states, you don't have to pay the $100 per month to be a member of that union. It's right out the window. You don't want to be in the union, you don't have to pay the dues. The flip side of that is, this is what happens in right-to-work states. When union memberships drop, wages drop. They drop a lot because the union's not strong enough to really negotiate for higher wages. Health benefits drop significantly. The poverty rate of the area as a whole goes up, and workplaces become more dangerous. So right to work is my right to say, I don't want to pay my union dues and be a part of your organization. I just want to teach. The overall impact of that has been that in the long run, it's going to hurt my interests to not be a part of a strong union. So two sides of that particular argument. All right, national unions. National unions operate throughout the entire United States. They will have local branches frequently, but they also have one central branch that really works to provide assistance to all of its local branches and look out for the rights of all members nationwide of that particular union. The UAW, the United Auto Workers, is a very big example, very popular example, and has branches throughout the United States, as does the AFT, the American Federation of Teachers. These are two very large unions in the United States. All right, on a federation level, here we're looking at large groups of unions that come together and work together. The AFLCIO is one of those that we've already discussed, and the largest in the United States. There are over 50 separate unions that are a part of the AFL-CIO. The AFL-CIO has over 9 million members. Now, this is, by and large, the largest union in the United States. But there are others out there, and there are other federations out there that are gathering together 6 or 8 or 9 unions to kind of work together and have that shared bargaining power. Okay, that is all for today. We're going to be looking a little bit more at bargaining rights and the process of bargaining that unions go through in our next lesson. But that is all for today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something, and farewell.